The cycle of frescoes that makes the splendid Hall of the Months in Palazzo Schifanoia unique in the world takes place from March, the first in the series still intact and not irreparably ruined by the whitewashing. March, like the other months, is divided into 3 horizontal registers. The upper one with the triumph of the month's patron deity, in this case Minerva. The central one with Aries, the zodiac sign of the period, and the 3 decans. And the lower one with scenes of Borso d'Este's government. As always, the upper register is divided into 2 different conceptual and symbolic registers. The first, more evident, is mythological. The second, concealed at first glance, is alchemical. The scene shows a young female figure, sitting on a chariot, pulled by 2 unicorns. On the head of the figure we see an owl, and a little further on a hovering crow. On either side of the chariot, adorned with fine black vases and putti, bearing garlands of fruit or red flowers, are 2 groups of figures. On one side are several female figures busy at the loom, and 3 young women, spinning, winding and cutting a thread. Borso d'Este, lord of Ferrara at the time, and commissioner of the fresco cycle, had favored the introduction of silk processing and promoted textile activities in Ferrara. On the other side, a large group of men discuss, holding ancient tablets and books. In the background are palaces and buildings carved into the rock. Athena was the Greek goddess of wisdom, the arts and war. She is a perpetual virgin and a warrior goddess. Among the functions of this deity are the protection of children, the defense of heroes, and the instruction of industrious women. She also guides the judges of the courts, and inspires the craftsmen. The goddess is often dressed in peplos and armed, surrounded by her symbols. The owl, the helmet, the spear, the shield, and the aegis, an indestructible cloak made from the skin of the goat Amalthea, who had protected and fed Zeus. In the scene she is represented with her traditional attributes: the spear, the aegis adorned with the head of Medusa, and the owl. Next to her flies a raven, that alludes to the legend of Erichthonius, a child born with snakes for legs, following an unsuccessful attempt to rape the goddess by Hephaestus. The goddess entrusted the basket with the child to Cecrop's daughters. But the two sisters opened the basket. A raven saw the scene and flew to report it to the goddess, who flew mad and threw the bird's feathers off a cliff. The goddess also turned the raven's feathers black. Skill as a weaver was one of the goddess's attributes. Due to her challenge to Arachne, the famous weaver of Lydia, who, believing herself superior to anyone in this art, committed the impudence of challenging Minerva, the patron goddess of weaving. The group of women at the loom also evokes the figure of Penelope, Ulysses' chaste bride, with her handmaidens. The three seated women are a clear reference to the three fates. Clotho, the spinner, Lachesis, the allotter, and Atropos, the inevitable, a metaphor for death. They are engaged in holding up the thread of life, to dispense fate by winding the thread assigned to each one to the spindle. It is to cut it with scissors when the time comes to die. The group of male figures represents ancient and modern philosophers, discussing with each other in a timeless dimension. They belong to different eras. Indeed, some hold a bound book in their hand, others an ancient tablet. The children on the chariot represent not only childhood, protected by Athena, but also the knowledge acquired with age, encouraged and protected by the goddess of wisdom. In such growth, coral necklaces are in fact an ancient symbol of protection from evil influences. Unicorns are a symbol of purity and virginity of the goddess. In fact, the legend was well known that these animals were wild and impregnable, but were easily tamed by a virgin maiden. Now, moving to a different level of reading, we can easily recognize in the scene numerous references to alchemy and its particular symbolism. Minerva, virgin goddess of wisdom, represents for the alchemist the virgin earth, from which he draws his prima materia or first matter. The square-shaped chariot is also a symbol of the earth. This pure and uncontaminated land is defended by dragons, represented by the head of the Medusa. In this context, the fact that the Gorgon was killed to put its head on the aegis is symbolic of the purification of matter. The owl represents alchemical fire, used in the first phase of the magnum opus. The raven, flying alongside Minerva, is a clear symbol of the Nigredo, one of the three phases of the great work, together with albedo and rubedo. The black vases on the chariot allude to the alchemical vessel, also known as the hermetic vessel, which essentially consists of the alembic, the receptacle for the substances that are to undergo the transmutational process, for the realization of the philosopher's stone. In alchemical treatises, unicorns are symbols equivalent to the green lion, the solvent that dissolves metals, allowing sulfur, mercury and salt to be extracted. On one side are the wise men intent on speculation, and on the other the industrious women at the loom. They symbolize the concepts of theory and practice, but also the male and female principle. gold and silver, sulfur and mercury. All the opposing but complementary elements that make up matter. The three women, interpreted as three fates, are an allusion to the three main phases of the opus, nigredo, albedo and rubedo, and the concept of weaving is intended to recall the alchemical motto solve et coagula, dissolve and coagulate. Even the colors in the scene on the characters' robes, black, white and red, are clear allusions to nigredo, albedo and rubedo. The corals and fruits of the garlands are symbols of the philosopher's stone obtained. In the background we see constructions carved out of stone that allude to caves, symbolizing the Athena, the alchemical furnace, the alchemist's cavern. The fact that they are not simple caverns but pleasant constructions, with round arches reminiscent of classical architecture, is symbolic of the antiquity of the noble discipline of alchemy, handed down through the generations by the wisest men. The cross on the mound of earth is meant to allude to the phosphor symbol, in which a cross surmounts a triangle. The cross was also the alchemical symbol of the crucible, the instrument where the first matter, worked with fire, finds death and is resurrected transformed. Two fortified buildings can also be seen in the background, representing the king's palace, which is closed, and the queen's palace, which is open. The first symbolizes access to the philosopher's gold. The second symbolizes access to philosophical Mercury. In the middle band, the icon of the ram, whose golden fleece was the destination of Jason and the Argonaut's voyage, is symbolic of the constellation Aries. According to astrology, this sign determines a series of behavioral characteristics of those born between the 21st of March, the spring equinox, and the 20th of April. The sun symbolizes the position of the star in the sky during this period. He is accompanied by three characters, the three decans. In the first, we have an icon of a man wearing a tattered white suit, with a rope around his waist. In the second, the icon of a crouching woman dressed in red. And in the third, the icon of a dashing young man, holding an arrow, a hoop and strings hanging from his wrists. They are prosopopoeia each of the corresponding decade, first, second or third, and icons of Perseus, Cassiopeia, and Heniochus, the charioteer. Each decan is in turn symbolic of the relevant constellation, which is supposed to confer special characteristics on those born in the period pertaining to them. In the lower band we see scenes of daily life in the Duchy of Ferrara, administered with justice and integrity by Borso d'Este. 4 putti help set the stage for the prosperity and justice of the Lord of Ferrara, with symbolic garlands of fruit and vegetables placed under his insignia. All appear to be engaged in some activity, showing themselves to be industrious and serene. There is a sense of order and elegance, as well as the building of an ever-better world, symbolized by the square stones at the feet of the group on horseback. One even sees a group of horsemen, led by Borso, advancing towards a stream, on which the bridge is still missing, evoked by stones and squared bricks ready to be used, sending the symbolic message that it is the Duke, with his march, who is building the future and the well-being of his people. In the Duchy of Ferrara, led by Borso, harmony, prosperity and remunerated activity reigned, allowing everyone to live well, according to justice. Faces are relaxed, smiling. Everyone is happy with their lot and occupation, either pruning the trees for the arrival of spring or hunting with the falcon. In addition to politics, Borso also dedicated himself to the improvement and expansion of possessions, above all in the grandiose work of draining the marshy areas near Ferrara. Within the city, he worked on enlarging the borders of Ferrara to the southeast, in what is known as the Borsian addition. Borso, everywhere present with his mild but decisive attitude, with the help of the constellations and the goddess of wisdom, became the promoter of harmony on earth. Fulcrum without which Ferrara could not have been the jewel of elegance, justice and alacrity that it became under his rule.
Lo, Lionel, lo, Borse great and kind, first Duke of thy fair race, his realm's delight, who reigns secure, and shall more triumphs find in peace than warlike princes win in fight, whose struggling furies' hands shall tie behind her back, and prison Mars removed from sight, his fair endeavors bent to bless and stay the people, that his sovereign rule obey.